It's a structure years in the making, a new gateway to the West.
Like history is going to be here after I die, way long after I die.
One generation's grand undertaking, built with muscle, sweat, and tears.
He was a very good dad, very good son, and he was a very good worker.
A tribute to a man who gave his best, and to countless men and women who represent America's best.
Stan Musial and vets together, there's nothing, no more Midwest.
Simply beautiful, strikingly complex.
We could sit back and we could reminisce on, hey, we put that together. We poured that concrete.
This is the making of the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge, a landmark of legend. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Bush.
And I'm Ann Allred. Over the next hour, we'll show you the highs and lows of the 4-year construction project to build this new bridge.
Building bridges over the Mississippi River is nothing new for those of us in St. Louis, but never before have we documented each step from beginning to end so closely. We begin with the people who know the bridge best, iron workers from Local 396, who captured their own memories. Greg Combs and his friends had a front row seat.
I kept thinking how lucky I was to be on that job.
At one of our city's most exciting events.
Being able to work on a landmark in your hometown is really something else.
On this day, they share a few photos.
What do you call them? Glamour shots?
Captured from their unique perspective.
Pretty much when you're building something, you remember setting almost every piece of it.
Photos freezing moments of tension.
You look at the numbers and it looks right on paper, but they were like 97, 98% capacity.
Suspense.
You had 167,000, I think that piece weighed, and you transferred it between 3 cranes in the air.
Or just hanging out.
I just got those two over there and they're talking. It's kind of neat seeing us, not in any kind of pressure, just how we're just kind of hanging out on the iron.
Memories that will last a lifetime.
We had a family day down there, and I got to bring all my nieces and nephew up there with me, and we all got us some pictures up there. That was really, they kind of understood kind of what I did then.
A structure that will last for generations.
And you always catch yourself when you're walking out to your truck at the end of the day, you look back and look up, see what you did, take a second and say, wow, that's pretty neat.
The $700 million project started in 2010, right in the middle of the Mississippi River. But years before the bridge started to take shape over the river, there was work being done under the river. It's late in 2010, and workers are busy laying the bridge's foundation. Their first priority, building cofferdams around each of the bridge's 2 bases. The dams not only provide a place to work, but also give workers access to their unique job site. Greg Horn works for the Missouri Department of Transportation and is the project's director.
Right now we're at the bottom of the cofferdam. We're about 20 feet, 25 feet under the water. We're actually sitting on the floor of the Mississippi River.
Workers have drilled 6 shafts to support each tower. Tons of concrete, reinforced with tons of steel.
They're 100 feet long. These clumps of 3, each one of those 100 feet long weighs about 2 tons. So when they set this in place, it's pretty amazing. They lower that down. And they have, you don't see them here, but they have bands underneath that are all tied together every 1 foot.
Sheets of steel wedged down into the riverbed create a precarious workspace.
There's always going to be water in here. You can never get these perfectly sealed, but raising up this working pad, they're able to work on something without being stuck in the water all day long.
Workers will spend months inside these cofferdams, constantly aware of the changing river levels and the risks they face.
So you're standing down there looking up. You can see the rust line when you're down there where the water is above your head.
And as the weeks wear on, the bridge's bases begin to take shape. Pouring concrete into the Missouri Tower seems like a never-ending process.
They started last night at 1 o'clock. They'll end today probably at 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon. So it's a 14, 15-hour pour.
And the December weather is just another reminder that Mother Nature can be a help or hindrance. Engineer Randy Hitt is the project's assistant director.
Freezing rain and ice on the makes slippery barges, makes it a little more hazardous, so a lot more caution has to be made to clean that off.
Despite the cold, workers inside the cofferdam are carrying out the task of creating an intricate form made of rebar.
What you're looking at is approximately 1.9 million pounds of reinforcing steel. So it's a lot of reinforcing steel to hold up all the seismic and weight of the bridge.
When complete, these two towers will support about 31 million pounds. As the towers of the new bridge begin to take shape, less than a mile east of the river, archaeologists labor to preserve what is old.
Most of what we're digging are the remnants of everyday life.
Joe Galloy and crews from the Illinois State Archaeological Survey are fighting the clock.
This is really sort of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity because of where this highway is going, or where this bridge and the interstate connector is going.
Thanks to a federal law that requires a dig be completed before the bridge is built. They hope to save what's left of an ancient community entombed on the outskirts of the Mississippi.
We're standing on the northern end of a large prehistoric site. We call it the East St. Louis Mound Center.
Crews started excavating the dig site in 2008.
It is a very, very slow process.
They've spent years scraping away at the dirt, hoping to unearth the past that's buried here.
No site is exactly like another one. And in fact, the percentage of what we really know about these ancient sites is very small.
For Galloy, doing what he's passionate about in the state he grew up in is as priceless as the history being uncovered.
One of the questions that I get asked when I tell people that I'm an archaeologist is, well, what are you doing here? They assume that archaeology happens in exotic places like Egypt or Central America or China, places like that. And I think part of it's just a lack of awareness that there was a rich, ancient Native American civilization here.
Thanks to the dig, archaeologists now know that two separate groups of people at different points in history called the area home. The first between 950 and 1050 AD.
The second group that came in were the Mississippian Indians, who were the people who built Cahokia mounds.
The area was essentially a residential neighborhood, a suburb, so to speak, for a much bigger Cahokia.
That's an image that, in terms of archaeology, we just didn't know that that happened.
It also backs up that even thousands of years ago, location was everything.
We think that it probably also functioned as possibly as a port city, an area where goods would come in and would probably go out.
A few facts archaeologists may have never discovered if the new river bridge was never built.
Finding these sorts of those little tidbits of what happened helped to produce a more complete picture of, say how far, Cahokia's influence was.
The only problem is, the longer they get, the harder they are to ship.
Constructing a monumental structure requires massive parts. Coming up, just how tricky getting those parts to the job site can be. The Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge may be the newest bridge on the St. Louis skyline, but it's just one of many bridges in our city's history. From the McKinley Bridge to the MLK to the Poplar. Bridges were either built to get people into the city,
over 100,000 people cross the Poplar Street Bridge every single day,
or relieve the congestion on already existing bridges.
It's a really great bottleneck, and now we see the problems that a bottleneck like that can cause.
But the city's first bridge was the St. Louis Bridge, better known as the Eads Bridge. Opened in 1874, it was built simply to connect the east to the west. Andrew Wanko is the Missouri History Museum's public historian.
The Mississippi River had long been a difficult source of a difficult thing for people to cross, and like I mentioned earlier, steamboats were really the way to get things around. So this was incredibly monumental.
The bridge was the brainchild of self-educated engineer James Eads. Considered a modern marvel, it was the world's first steel truss bridge.
We look at the Eads Bridge now and we think, wow, that thing is it's massive, it's strong, it's never moving. People looked at it back then and they were terrified of it.
But since steel was a new structural material, people just weren't convinced it would hold up as promised.
People were really afraid, and bridge collapses were pretty common at the time, even under the weight of just one train. And so they were really worried this could be a huge failure and sort of a black eye for St. Louis in the nation, a big embarrassment if this thing collapsed.
Eads, who never seemed to lack confidence, also had a knack for showmanship.
He borrowed an elephant from a traveling circus, and he walked the elephant across the bridge in front of a big crowd of people that had gathered on the levee. And everybody knew an elephant would never walk on something that couldn't hold its weight. And the thing, sure enough, it walked clear across to Illinois.
When the doubts lingered, Eads parked 14 locomotives in the center of the bridge at the same time.
One by one, they drove off, and no problems at all.
The Eads Bridge originally carried rail and pedestrian traffic, but the railroads abandoned the bridge in 1974. By the early 90s, traffic on the Eads had slowed down to about 4,000 cars a day. In 1991, it closed, reopening 2 years later when Metrolink began using the bridge's lower train deck. The old bridge underwent a major renovation, and in 2003, traffic began rolling across the Eads Bridge once again. And the rest is history.
Once completed, the bridge will be the third largest cable-stayed bridge in the United States. And when you're building a bridge that size, just getting the parts to complete it is a very big job. Building a bridge isn't just about building a bridge. You have to get to it to cross it.
You know, there's 31 construction projects, and it's all like a big puzzle.
And MoDOT's Greg Horn is in charge of making sure that each piece is put in the right place at the right time.
This is just bringing one girder, one of 100 girders onto this project.
In the spring of 2011, workers are maneuvering a 125-foot-long concrete girder from Interstate 70 down to the Missouri approach.
Interstate's not as big of a problem as getting off at the interchanges and making around turns, and that's why, if you'll notice, the back wheels can turn also. So there's actually somebody in the front of this truck that steers the back, and then somebody that steers the front of the truck.
Horn says it's a move that will be repeated again and again. Once on the job site, 2 crane operators work in tandem, lifting the bulky beam into place.
Most girders, they typically only have one crane doing it, so the two operators have to work in conjunction with each other, which makes it more difficult.
Foot by foot, the crane operators negotiate their precious cargo forward. It's not a typical day's work, even for these skilled men.
And that's really hard when you have to walk with the crane rather than just boom over. Yeah, because then there's a lot of movement. It takes a good operator.
More than an hour after its arrival, workers lower the beam into place. Teamwork is paramount.
You know, a lot of times crane operators can't see exactly where they're setting stuff down, so they have to look at the guys on top that are giving them hand signals.
As soon as all the pieces are in place, work begins on another puzzle. It will be another 4 months before they pour the driving surface on the Missouri approach. About 25 miles from the main construction site,
right now we're taping this off so the concrete doesn't leak out.
In the heart of St. Charles County,
keeping it in the forms so that it won't fall and keep the right level.
Construction workers are putting in 8 hours a day.
So when you're driving, you don't have any bumps.
Each adding his touch to the bridge.
I've been building this bridge since last year.
Ordinary guys like Dave Stewart and Andrew Leach.
Tie wire, put it all together, bend steel and stuff like that.
Doing extraordinary things. They're part of the crew at XL Contracting, where workers are tying, pouring, and scraping. Pete Allen is heading up this off-site construction project to build the bridge's underlayment. They are making precast panels. A lot of them.
456 total. There's 376 standard deck panels. There's some counterweight panels. There's roof panels for the towers themselves, but 376 roadway panels.
Each panel is handcrafted and custom built for a specific place on the final structure. First, the form is laid out according to the diagram specs. Next, rebar is placed and tied off. After the work has been triple checked, the slab is poured and floated. It's repetitive, painstaking work.
We've hit as many as 14 in a week, but it's usually 8 to 10 a week, depending on, rain days.
But to these men, it's worth it. They're helping to build history.
Especially when I drive over it, too. Get to drive over and see that I made this, though. So that's always good.
Yeah, something that you can tell your grandchildren that you are part of when you're driving across it, knowing that you did a good job, that it's built safe for everybody else.
They all realize it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
I'm still pretty early in my career as a civil engineer, and to be working on a project of this scale right off the bat. You know, I'm 4 years out of school and working on one of the biggest bridges in the Midwest right here in St. Peters, Missouri. It's pretty neat.
Once completed, the panels are cataloged and stacked. The first ones built will be the last ones laid into place on the bridge's deck.
I saw how a bridge is being constructed, which is like a blast for me.
Out of the classroom and down to the river. Coming up, engineering students get a glimpse of their future. It's early March 2011.
The cofferdam is completed.
And construction continues.
The footing is poured.
But now conditions are a little different.
Before, most of the other stuff was all underwater, and now we're actually coming above water.
For the first time, the towers are beginning to take shape.
Now you got the tower steel coming out of the footing, and they're getting ready to form up for the first concrete pour.
For weeks, iron workers craft a steel cage, making sure each piece is perfectly placed. Small errors can quickly turn into large problems.
It's actually like a big puzzle trying to fit all this reinforcing steel into the place here. And trying to get it all lined up right.
A wooden form is built around the structure in preparation for the largest concrete pour of the entire job. Before it's done, workers will use enough concrete to pour what amounts to roughly 3,600 backyard patios.
Probably going to have 400 truckloads of concrete,
which will be pumped from the trucks through a maze of tubes and into the cofferdam.
Then all the people, you can't even see them. They're down in the bottom mat of steel and moving these hoses around.
What took 2 days to complete will take 2 weeks to cure. It's a process workers will repeat 6 more times before the base is finished.
They'll pour to this flat surface down here today, and then they'll tie more steel in it. This tower progresses up from there. So all this steel will be sticking out of the concrete.
When this phase of the construction wraps up, the base of the tower stands nearly 75 feet tall.
St. Louis hasn't had a new bridge since the 1960s. It's provided a rare opportunity for students who hope to one day build bridges of their own.
You say 120 U of T minus 3.
It's another night of impossible math.
What's important here is that once you're breaking up this in partial fractions.
For students in the University of Missouri St. Louis Washington University Joint Engineering Program.
This would be A plus K.
But today, the future engineers are leaving the books and blackboards behind.
So this is what the bridge is going to look like when it's done.
Taking class on the road.
This is a great opportunity for the students in the University of Missouri St. Louis Washington University Joint Engineering Program to come out and see engineering in action.
Here's I-70.
They're getting a first-hand look at what it takes to build a bridge.
Not only the design process, but the actual result of the design, the actual build.
It's a chance for civil engineering major Yahya El-Assadi and other engineering enthusiasts to get a glimpse at what they hope will be their lifelong careers.
When I decided to become an engineer, people ask me, what do you want to do? And I say I want to build bridges and buildings. So I tackled the first one today.
The crane, that's a Manitowoc 7000. It's a 400-foot crane with a 60-foot jib. It's one of the biggest they make in the world. You don't see too many of those.
From large equipment to the smallest of details.
Studying it, reading about engineering is not enough. You have to come out and see what they're actually doing, or in the concepts. Put in like pictures with what you're learning. It's just amazing to me.
To me, it's not just the lighting or the deck, or it looks so cool. It's knowing the whole system and how this is going to impact St. Louis.
From compression to stress to trusses, students get to apply what they're being taught.
As an engineer, I immediately appreciate how much work had to go into this. All the calculations, the planning. I mean, you could imagine how hard it is to start a bridge on 2 ends and then build it up to meet in the center and hope that everything is okay.
There's a different color in concrete as you go up the towers.
Every aspect of the build piques their interest, even concrete.
We had to have steel slag in that to help cure it, and so it looks a little bit different.
It's something you just can't get in a classroom.
To see a bridge being built is a unique opportunity, and we're thrilled that our students had the chance to come out here and see this.
And for some of them, watching from the sidelines just isn't enough.
But I was hoping we'd go up there and actually look on the bridge. That would have been a treat for me.
It was very exciting to be here and to see it hands-on. I wish we could be closer, but I'll get what I can take.
About 60 students graduate from the Joint Engineering Program each year. Most of the students are from St. Louis and will stay right here. It's late summer 2011. The bridge's bulky base is in place.
Everything up to this has been a foundation.
As excitement grows,
in another couple months, you'll be able to see it from different places in St. Louis.
And workers begin to look up.
The towers are starting right out of here.
At this point, a little imagination takes you a long way.
The Delta Tower will come all the way to the top, another 300 feet up.
Engineers have budgeted almost a year to complete the towers, and despite river levels being high,
we lost a few days, but we're still on track for a early 2014 opening.
It's a schedule Project Director Greg Horn intends to keep, but one that will be challenged in the months ahead. But for now, with machines and muscle, progress comes 15 feet at a time. By winter of 2011,
we're about 175 feet in the air.
The job is at its halfway point.
The construction is going fabulous. The river has been cooperating for this last 6 or 8 months.
But with the cold comes uncertainty. And the higher up they go.
When you get up there on a windy day, it's really hard to get stuff, have the cranes lift stuff up. There's been a few days that we've had to shut down because of the wind.
Up to this point, the towers, filled with rebar and concrete, were solid. From here on up, they'll be hollow, giving future maintenance workers access to the top.
And there'll be a ladder on the inside for somebody, when we're done with this thing, to climb up and change light bulbs on top.
Carpenter Chris Wilson is no stranger to the big job.
Yeah, I worked on the Clark Bridge. Worked on the football stadium over there, the ballpark.
He's grown used to close quarters.
It's real challenging working in that core when we go to strip and roll the forms in. It gets really tight. Not a lot of room to move around.
But he takes it all in stride.
I'm just here for the exercise and the camaraderie.
When the towers reach just over half their height, gigantic metal boxes are fitted into the core to help anchor the bridge's support cables.
As the cables go through there, they get tensioned up. They get tensioned up, and then there'll be a white conduit that goes over. There's probably about 72 cables inside of there, and then there's a white conduit that goes over the whole thing and comes right on through, the side of this pier here.
One by one, gigantic buckets of concrete are hoisted to the heavens, and foot by foot, workers approach the atmosphere.
We're about 370 feet in the air. We're on the Missouri Tower.
Finally, in mid-May 2012,
so you can see on the right is the downstream, and on the left here is the upstream leg.
The tower legs stand a mere 10 feet apart.
They're going to pour this piece tomorrow, and then we have 2 more pours on top of that connect these 2 together. So within 3 weeks, we'll have this thing topped out.
He was great, yes. And what he put into it with his heart.
He was a worker with a passion for building. Coming up, remembering Andy Gammon, a husband, father, and son. The man who lost his life building the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge. It's the middle of August 2012. The towers are topped and work has begun on the bridge's main span.
The span in between the 2 piers is 1,500 feet. Makes it the 3rd longest cable stay bridge in the United States.
The plan is to lift pre-assembled field sections from the riverbank and attach them, building out evenly on each side of the towers. Under the best of conditions, it is an epic balancing act.
For the next few months, we'll be closing the gap in the river, with both sides going out at about 130 feet a month.
It doesn't take long before Mother Nature has her say. A hot summer with little rain results in low river levels, something bridge engineers hadn't anticipated.
The problem is the water's low enough that we can't get barges between the Illinois bank and the Illinois pier,
making it impossible to float the massive field sections into place.
Since they can't do that now, they have to build those in the air piece by piece, and that takes a little bit longer than they had planned.
Despite delays, engineers still anticipate an early 2014 opening. December 2012. A large sheath of conduit is rolled into place.
It doesn't really have any structural value. All the cables inside of that is what holds the bridge up.
Each cable on the inside is about the thickness of a nickel. The number of cables in each conduit varies.
We started off with 23 cables at the very beginning, And by the time you get all the way to the end, you'll have 76 cables.
It's enough cable to stretch from here to Kansas City and back. Inside one tower, workers pull the cables, each cable's tension specifically calculated for the amount of weight it will bear, then simply wedged into place, securing hundreds of thousands of pounds below.
Ready for liftoff. All right, heading up in the man basket.
A month later, the new year brings new perspective to the construction.
So we're about 6 cables from the top. We got 17 altogether, so we're over 2/3 of the way done with the cables.
Standing atop the Illinois Tower, looking west, the span creeps toward the middle of the Mississippi.
And we hope to have this whole thing completed by about a year from now.
A few weeks later, another check mark. The girder connecting the main span to the Missouri approach slides easily into place on one side, as the crane operator gently lowers the other side into place.
I got 4.5.
Workers check to make sure the beam is centered properly, and when they are satisfied, the Missouri approach is successfully joined with the main span. Building this bridge has not been without sacrifice and tragedy.
35-year-old Andy Gammon of Park Hills was killed in 2012 when the lift he was working on fell into the river. His family believes his work was not in vain.
This one was one of him when he was 4 years old.
Family photographs are now more precious than ever to Andy Gammon's parents, Susie and Ed. Andy was a carpenter by trade, and the Gammons say even as a little boy, Andy loved to put things together.
He played with blocks a lot and did things like that. And when he got older, some of his drawings were like about houses and things like that.
Those years moved fast, but his folks said he blossomed as an athlete. He was a standout center fielder at Central Park Hills High School.
His senior year in high school, he batted .500, and probably 90% of his hits were infield hits.
Despite a football scholarship, Andy's parents said college really wasn't for him. It was building that captured his heart, so it became his life's work.
He was a perfectionist. I worked with him some when he'd build a house, and we'd get into it. You know, his first house he built, I'd make a suggestion. He said, "Dad, I do this for a living." He said, "You just carry me some lumber over here and I'll do the building."
Andy married, had children, and his parents say cherished his time as a father. He wanted to work close to home, but it wasn't always possible.
He worked a lot of hours, driving back and forth to St. Louis, but he came home on weekends, and he just hated that. He hated being away from him.
More than building homes, more than baseball, Andy's children, Emma and Ethan, were the center of his universe.
When they went riding in the car, Ethan had to sit right behind his dad. That was his spot to sit, nowhere else. And then Emma came along, and it still was that way.
On the night before the bridge opened, the Gammon family attended the memorial ceremony with hundreds of others.
1, 2, 3.
Theirs, though, was a different kind of pride, and they hope Andy's legacy will be simple.
He was a great person and a hard worker. Anybody who's been around him knows what kind of guy he was.
In years to come, I can look at it and say, I was a part of that.
Building history. Coming up, meet just a couple of the iron workers that left their mark on the New River Bridge. Greg Johnston wasn't supposed to be an iron worker.
My family was all pipe fitters. I'm the first generation iron worker.
But when he was 12, a friend's dad took him to the iron workers picnic.
And I saw what they were doing, and I just, ever since then, wanted to become an iron worker.
A choice that's taken him all around the country.
Well, I spent a year in South Carolina on a nuclear facility, 6 months in New Orleans on a Seabrook Gate project.
But this July day finds him at home, right in the center of the action.
Hold that, stop.
Workers are preparing to hoist the final piece of iron onto the bridge. It's a difficult process, but after a false start to free the flag,
Good job, Captain.
the final piece is airborne and headed for home.
Hey, Scott, I'm going to stop you once you get off the road deck. We're going to grab that leading tag line. About 8 more feet. Swing into your right.
Tension mounts as the beam approaches the bridge's structure. There's little margin for error as the crane operator blindly maneuvers the girder up over the bridge's cable.
Let's hold your swing there for now, Scott. Straight boom down. 20 feet.
Across the deck.
Start working down on your line.
And down into place.
Keep coming down and hold that.
As Greg and his fellow ironworkers take their turn in front of the camera.
Hank, loving the signature, baby.
And pause to autograph their handiwork.
You like that? I like it. It's the same always, baby.
They know the most delicate part of the job lies ahead.
All right, Scott, coming up on your line. We're on you about 4 or 5 feet.
Workers must place the gigantic beam between the two edge girders. It's a tight fit.
Keep coming down, looking good.
They hold their breath as the beam is lowered the final few inches.
Coming down. Coming down. Hold that.
When workers hammer temporary pins to hold the girder in place, Johnston breathes a sigh of relief.
No fighting, baby, no fighting.
A once stubborn structure.
I can't believe it fell in like that. We fought so hard on all the other ones, and that one just fell in.
Now tamed.
We talked about it all morning. We took a lot of measurements to see what it was going to be like, and it was going to be close, really close. And then I guess the weather was right.
One more job Johnston and his fellow ironworkers can be proud of.
Whether you're building this or a building, every day when you leave, you look back and you can see it growing. It grows and grows. You get to see a new horizon every day.
As the bridge neared completion, it was time to party, or at least picnic. So one summer afternoon, workers got the chance to show their families what all this fuss was about.
Learned a lot, you know, that I'll never forget.
Carpenter Lynette Bryant is celebrating. Not only was she grateful to be part of a historic moment, but is so happy the job meant so much to her.
It was amazing, you know, and how fast we caught on and how fast it went up.
Bryant says she still can't believe she was a part of it.
Every day I just look and just say, wow, I'm gonna be a part of history. You know, just every day is just amazes me every day.
Bryant was with dozens of other workers and their families who spent the afternoon in the shade of the bridge, reminiscing about what they've built so far.
It'll be a memory because I live in this area.
Crane operator Lance Miller had another reason to mark the day. It was the end of a 34-year career. This job, though, among his most memorable.
It's been a wonderful job. I mean, I've worked on, well, I did the McKinley Bridge up north, but this one here, it's a brand new bridge. It's been quite a job.
Miller says there was stress and challenges along the way, but he and his co-workers can look back fondly.
Proud, no doubt. But I'm still glad this is my last day. It's been a long time.
Though Lynette Bryant hasn't been at it nearly as long as Miller, her time on the project represents so many different things.
It makes me feel like times have really changed to where they don't look at me as being a woman. They look at me as being one of their co-workers, you know, and I appreciate it. And they give me the respect that, you know, that I deserve.
It's just one of the many memories that will stay with her long after the bridge is finished.
Like, wow, I'm building this. I'm building this, and years to come, I can look at it and say, I was a part of that. I was a part of it, you know. Just make myself proud.
In all, more than 3,400 workers helped on the bridge during the 4-year construction project, spending thousands and thousands of hours building the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge. Once the bridge's towers pass the midway point, they're an addition to the skyline that can be seen from all over town. Vinny Guldani is keeping an eye on the bridge's progress from the fairway at Gateway National Golf Links in Madison, Illinois.
The views are great. We get quite a few holes that we look right back into the city. Great views of the arch. You really can't beat it.
He noticed parts of the stand span finally peeking over the trees a short time back.
Seems like, you know, every few weeks the view kind of changes with different machinery on the bridge and just, you know, as the seasons change, the views change. So sometimes, like now, we don't get the best view of the bridge, but whenever the leaves start falling, we get to see right through and see all the guys hard at work.
And he's not the only golfer that's noticed.
Amazing. You know, when you sit here and you look at it.
Even miles away and partially built, the bridge is hard for Paul Spotansky to miss.
You really don't get a good perspective of what's going on until you get close by and you see all the amount of work and the heavy construction and basically how high those guys are working up in the air.
A first for Spotansky and a first for the St. Louis skyline.
St. Louis has a beautiful skyline with the arch and all the high rises, but you know, I mean, adding the bridge can't do anything but make it even prettier than it is.
But it's not just the new addition to the skyline Guldani looks forward to seeing. Reducing traffic on the Poplar is sure to make it easier to get in a round of golf.
Absolutely. You know, I kind of work my golf game around the traffic that I think is going to be on the Poplar.
It's truly a good engineering feat to build something like this in the middle of the Mississippi River.
The devil is in the details. Coming up 4 years after they started, workers put the finishing touches on the new bridge. It's the middle of September 2013. Opening day looms just 4 months away, and there is still plenty to do.
Putting up the railing from the outside, electrical work, a lot of miscellaneous things. We'll see after the overlay is on if we have to do any final cable tensioning.
At one end of the bridge, workers are building the form for the center median. At the other, it's being filled. It's a process that moves at a snail's pace on this hot September day. It's just another check mark on what seems like the ultimate to-do list.
Things don't wrap up like this by accident. It's all a lot of planning, a lot of coordination meetings with a lot of different folks.
The bridge must still be painted, the driving surface poured. And as construction creeps towards completion, engineers look past the ribbon cutting, when the bridge will finally do what it was built to do.
So we have a huge cleanup to some of our traffic messes, which is going to be hopefully an economic boom to the community.
Finally, in early February, another milestone.
But tonight we wanted to give a little preview of the bridge for you to see.
A small crowd gathers on the bridge for the formal lighting ceremony.
This is a perfect tribute to such a beloved man and athlete in St. Louis area to name this bridge after him, and so many veterans who have risked their lives so that we can have our freedom.
And with the flip of a switch,
3, 2, 1, go!
The Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge illuminates the St. Louis skyline for the first time.
It also took an act of Congress to name the bridge after Stan Musial and our veterans. For Cardinal fans and Stan's family, it's a mammoth memorial for a man who was larger than life. On this cold February day, Brian Schwarzy climbs to the top of a bridge honoring his grandfather who climbed to the top of his game. No one left a mark on Cardinal baseball like the beloved Stan Musial. And with wind howling and temperatures dipping, Schwarzy celebrates with some of the men who helped build the bridge that bears Stan's name. The magnitude of the project and the view is not lost on anyone.
The two states really came together and decided that it was best to be named after the veterans and Stan Musial as well, which I think is a great fit. But to see this awe-inspiring bridge behind me is something to be seen.
Sullivan's first pitch to Stan is swung on as a drive back into right field.
Schwarzy says the structure is a fitting memorial because Stan the man was such a bridge builder in life.
He was always a man. I mean, he saw through all the black and white and everything, and just saw people as people.
The Musial family believes the new bridge may be the perfect symbol for baseball's perfect night.
I don't know a public figure that's more in tune to a city than Stan was. I mean, he really was what's so good about St. Louis, was also what's so good about Stan. He's just, you know, it's a family town, and that's what he was. He was a family man. He was loving. He was caring.
Sightseeing over and pictures to mark the event, Schwarzy says not much can top this day.
Even with the cold, it's definitely worth it.
His grandson says Musial may be a little embarrassed by all the attention if he were alive today, but his family is touched beyond words.
It goes to show how much he really was loved in life, and I mean, he really did give so much that's why he's getting so much back after his passing.
No one person gets a project done like this by himself or herself, but I was very proud to take this on.
After years of planning and construction, it's finally finished. Coming up, celebrating the opening of the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge.
Welcome to the ribbon cutting ceremony for the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge.
On a cold February morning, thousands of people took advantage of a rare opportunity to walk across the new bridge.
And this is the place to be. Everybody's here.
Some came to pay tribute to our veterans who sacrificed for our freedom. Others wore their cardinal red, honoring one of baseball's finest. And everyone had a memory of the great Stan Musial to share.
I enjoyed watching him play back in the day, even in Sportsman's Park as a kid, and so I think it's a neat way to honor him.
It was a morning for celebration, the culmination of years of planning and construction.
I can't tell you how many people that were involved in the process.
No one was more involved than Illinois Congressman Jerry Costello, who began working on it in 1984. Through his work and others, Missouri and Illinois became partners in a daunting project.
This is what we can accomplish when we come together, put our differences aside, political differences and regional differences aside, come together to better the transportation system for our region and for our country. 3, 2.
With just a snip of a giant scissors, St. Louisans fell in love.
We now have the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge.
It just feels like the old days when like NASA was really appreciated, and going to the moon was appreciated, and still appreciating what it takes in engineering and what our country still does.
I mean, I've seen like a lot of bridges in different cities, but I don't think I've ever seen one that's like this.
From the sea of walkers to the Clydesdales. On that freezing morning, it seemed the whole community was there. Sunday, the bridge was open for business. A 1958 Trailways bus was the first to make it over. Members of the American Association of Railroaders planned to make history.
We enjoy it, and we've got a crowd of some of our regulars on board that the cold weather won't stop them from anything.
By Monday, St. Louisans began to feel the Stan span was part of the landscape. An exciting new commute was underway.
KSDK photojournalist Jim Tuxbury documented every step of this bridge project. It is through his incredible hard work we were able to bring you this journey, the construction of the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge.
We leave you with more of Jim's unforgettable images, and to those who planned, worked, and sacrificed to create this enduring structure, thank you.